We
start
are
first.
live. Hello, everyone.
Hello,
Welcome to
everyone.
Park. We are Park right here. So, this is episode 6. We have for a guest today Larry Litton, and we also have Mr. Tom and Katrina here. Tom, go ahead.
Well,
I
I
know
just
you
want to
have
say in
something.
front, when you speak to Larry, speak slowly because he's from Canada. So I got like a 30-second rant that I want to do because last week the Congress passed the act to end Parkinson's.
Right.
407 people voted in favor and 9 people voted against. And those 9 people were those evil Republicans. I used to be an evil Republican, but now I can't imagine calling myself a Republican anymore. But that's my little rant is how can these 9 people basically look at somebody with Parkinson's and say, I'm not interested in helping you get better. When 200 of their fellow Republicans said yes, 9 said no.
Right.
So that's my rant. And so we welcome our good friend Larry today. Larry's an ambassador from the Davis Finney Foundation, like Katrina and I. And we just have to give that generic warning that anything said here does not represent the Davis Finney Foundation. We merely are volunteers with them. And for that matter, anything that's said today probably doesn't make much sense if it's coming out of my mouth. So Davis Finney don't want to take credit for it anyways.
Yeah.
With that being said, I'll introduce Larry. He can tell you a little about himself, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and it's great to see you both. And I'm amazed at Davis Finney. I think they do a great job, and really have introduced me to a lot of people, both sides of the border. I think to your point, Tom, I think those 9 people that voted against it are probably the only 9 in the world that probably don't have anybody that they know of who has Parkinson's. Because
that's a good point.
Everybody who I meet either have Parkinson's. It's either their caregiver or they know somebody. And I think with the increasing prevalence and incidence of people with Parkinson's, it's just a matter of time before everybody knows somebody with Parkinson's.
Right.
So thanks for welcoming me onto your podcast. I think it's great. I like sharing my story, giving some tips and strategies about how I've lived my life with Parkinson's for more than 10 years. I mean, it all started with a series of tests to rule out everything else, and Parkinson's was left standing. And that was over 10 years ago. The first couple of years, it threw me into a bit of a tailspin. I lived my life on my couch, disassociated from everybody, including my family. But then got to the point through going through those 5 stages of grief. I think they're 5. To the point of acceptance. And that's when I started living with it and no longer against it, and got moving literally to the point of playing the drums. I used drumming I used to play the drums when I was much younger, but to deal with the physicality, I took to drumming again and played hand drumming. And then I started.
Doug Picard, one of the ambassadors, Doug?
Sorry, what?
You know an ambassador named Doug? He's also the only other Canadian.
I think I do. Yes.
He does something called Dopa Beats. I'll connect you two after the meet because he does drumming as well. You guys would get along.
Really? Oh, that's
yeah, and
great.
you're 2 Canadians, so you got so much in common. Drums
Yes.
in Canada.
We'll play all the Canadian. We'll provide the Canadian content, which is necessary.
Okay.
But I do find that it is great for the physicality of it. And then I started running, and then started cycling. So my one spiel that I like talking about is the benefit of exercise. And I just wanted to share with you that this year I turned 60 on the 16th of October this year. On the 15th of October, I'm going backwards. On the 15th of October, I completed my 4th half marathon. I did complete it. I did run it. Thank you. And then going further back in August, I participated in a 100-kilometer bike ride with Pedaling for Parkinson's, and spent the summer preparing for that. And I have found that on my visits to my neurologist, my specialist here in Canada, because of the impact that I believe that the exercises had, I'm actually taking less medication today, 10 years later, than I did right at the beginning. So it is a strenuous cardio exercise in my case, which I think is beneficial to me. But I would encourage anybody who can move, who can do something to move, do it for as long as you can and as hard as you can to get that benefit as much as you can. I can't say that every day is golden, because there are some days where I do run, 10 kilometers, but then an hour later I have freezing, and I break that by, walking backwards or marching on the spot. And I've just come to accept that, in the back of my mind, I have the benefit of having run 15 kilometers an hour before. And then I know Parkinson's is still around, because when I can't walk to get the mail in my mailbox, I know, Parkinson's is still there. But unlike when I started this journey, that incident would have thrown me into a dark place, into a tailspin. I just give myself time. I give myself time to recalibrate, to sit down, to do those little things to break that freeze, and then I just get on with my life. So in a large extent, my life after Parkinson's has become better than before, because I've learned about myself. I've learned to recenter and recalibrate. And I actually like the person I've become with Parkinson's, as opposed to not, before. Obviously, I wouldn't want to have Parkinson's, but because I was dealt this card, I've learned to live with it. And I think that's the important message as well, is at that acceptance stage, you can be in a life worth living again. And that's my encouragement to everybody. Is some people go through their whole lives not accepting. And I think that personally is sad, because there's still a life to live with Parkinson's. And I want people to get to that point of acceptance as soon as possible.
Like you said, it took me a couple of years before I accepted the fact. And also, like you, I'm doing exercise. I'm playing pickleball 2 hours a day, 4 days a week. So I'm getting 8 hours. I'm actually in this April. I'm starting to train for a 50-mile, maybe 30 or 50-mile bike ride.
Terrific.
But the advantage is in Delaware, there are no hills. The only hills we have here are called speed bumps.
Right. Or false
50 miles of flat land.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a place called the Back of the Dragon. It's so mountainous.
Yeah.
That's what they call it. Way back here.
Sounds like both areas are good training.
Oh, yeah. But where I'm trying to get pedaling for Parkinson's at our YMCA right now in Tazewell, because out here in Appalachia, there's not a lot of resources at all. And that's where Davis Finney helps me, is trying to get some resources out here. We don't even have a neurologist. I have to drive 4 hours.
Right.
My doctor.
One of my pet peeves as it comes to exercises, they'll say any exercise is good exercise. Well, that's not a tangent. I'm just following along with it. But they say yes, walking around the block is better than doing nothing. But for Parkinson's, that is not exercise. You have to get your heart rate up. You have to have that high level of endurance. For some people say half hour 3 times a week, or an hour 3. But if you're just exercising and you're not breaking a sweat, it's probably more socialization and not. But in order to delay the progression of the disease, you've got to hit that level of exercise.
Yes. Yeah. I agree. I agree with that. I think, doing something is better, but you're right. And that, it's so personal to everybody's journey. I mean, you can't, be prescriptive, but there's no question that everything that I've researched about exercise, it certainly is beneficial.
Well, to test your theory, when I go to play pickleball 7 to 9, and those nights I take my meds at 7. So the night I'm playing pickleball, I don't take my meds. Because I'm trying to see how my body reacts to the dopamine that's being produced through exercise.
Naturally.
And for the most part, I don't need those, because they're only maintenance drugs anyways. By skipping, most people are skipping your meds for one period isn't really going to hurt you.
Right.
So I like to experiment that way as well. And I find that, if I'm exercising and it comes med time, I can forego those meds, and it doesn't have a really big impact.
Right. On the other side of the physicality of exercise, what I also do, and I'd like to get your comments as well, is I practice meditation. just to,
Mhm.
in the mornings, I start with 10, 15 minutes where I'm sitting and I'm just calm, and I've just focused on my breathing, because, dealing with the non-motor symptoms from time to time, the anxiety that comes with Parkinson's, I do find that the exercise is offset again with the mindful practice.
Mhm.
And I think that's as equally important, to calm ourselves, to focus on the breath, and just to recenter and also recalibrate. So
I took a mindfulness class, and one of the exercises was for 30 minutes, lay down and just like think about, picture your body, go from the big toe all the way up to the little toe, then work your way up. And just after about 5 seconds, I was in a panic because I can't sit still and not think. And so when the session was done, she said, "Anybody want to tell about their experience?" I said, "Yes, I would." It was like a living hell.
Well, you should have started with 5 minutes and then worked up to 30 minutes.
I've worked my way through now. You call it yoga breathing. If I feel particularly stressed, I just start, doing my deep breathing.
Right.
And I even, with my watch, I had the heart rate monitor on it.
Yes.
And I'll check it. I can definitely see my heart rate drop to a more suitable level.
Yes. Yeah. No,
that's what I did with mindfulness. Mindfulness was very tough for me with ADHD, and I also have chronic pain because a year before Parkinson's symptoms started, I had a spinal fusion because I was a nurse for almost 20 years, and I had a patient who fainted, and instinctively I went behind her to prevent her from getting injured, but she fell on me, and the IV pole and everything went down on me, and so I needed a fusion. And so between that, and I don't tremor, but I have the slowness and the heaviness on my right side. And, that always throws my hardware off. I'm between DBS and my 4 screws and 2 rods. I'm like, bionic woman here between all my hardware. So, but mindfulness really helps me, and a little bit of yoga and stretching and all of that. I do that before, and I use dance as my main go-to because I enjoy it, but I'll do it. And also it helps with the mind-body connection, kind of like you said earlier, with what was the exercise you were saying, that with the connecting the mind and the body?
Just to sit quietly and meditate.
Yeah, because that's so important to keep your mind going, because the cognitive stuff, because that to me was harder for me to deal with, the non-motor problems and the cognitive, because being a nurse for so long, I used to be able to multitask like that, but I just non-existent anymore. And that was more difficult for me to deal with than the motor symptoms.
Yeah, that's interesting. You bring up cognitive, and I think that's the other topic that I wanted to talk about is the career. I was diagnosed at 49. I was in the middle of my career, the principal wage earner as a corporate immigration lawyer, and it reaches a point where my condition intersected with my performance. And this whole topic of disclosure and the impact on disclosure on career development is a sort of another topic that I like talking about, because I think there's an opportunity to educate employers about us with Parkinson's, because I think there's a great ignorance about it, not an understanding. I disclosed my condition to all my employers after my diagnosis. I didn't keep a secret, but I've met a lot of people through support groups and talking to a lot of people in the community about the timing of disclosure. Firstly, do I disclose? When do I disclose? What happens when I disclose? I mean, you've got legislation that protects anybody from disclosing, doesn't obligate them to disclose, but there's no question that there is an impact when you disclose, irrespective of what the legislation says that should be the contrary. It's always an issue. When I disclosed, I didn't disclose the day I got diagnosed, because obviously that's the wrong time to do it. I disclosed when I was under control in terms of my medication and felt good about it. But as I said, I mean, I was a partner at a professional services firm, and as a, you're sitting in a boardroom and questions are asked, and cognitively I started losing my train of thought.
Yeah.
And I realized that functioning at that high level was no longer possible. So that's when I extracted myself from the practice. But having done that, I am back in the workforce, but on a different level. And I think it also gave me the time to recalibrate about what I can do. With Parkinson's, as you always talk about what Parkinson's takes away.
Right.
In this case, it did. I mean, I came down, to an operational level, but there's still a lot that I can still do. So it sort of, it gave me the excuse to redraft a position description.
Right.
And allows you to kind of recalibrate in that sense as well, that you can still be productive, maybe on a different level. But it gives me the same cognitive stimulation that I think we all need when we're going through this journey.
I miss that banter. I miss that workforce conversation. I miss fixing things, like you said, multitasking. When I was diagnosed, I don't remember exactly when, but I did. My employer, guy who ran the company, was named Mike, and I knew him for like 10, 12 years at that point. So he was more like a friend. So I did disclose to him. And he basically, what was nice is in the beginning, he said, as long as I have a job, you have a job, which gave me a lot of comfort. But then as the Parkinson's got worse, and I used to manage stress. I used to say I managed chaos. As
Right.
the chaos got worse, I wasn't able any longer to operate at that level.
Right.
So like you, I tried to reinvent myself, and I actually made a proposal to them. I said, this is what I'd like to do. I think I'd be very good at this. I think the company would benefit. Right. And I'll be willing to take a 25% pay cut because I know this position is not the same level as my previous position.
Right.
And he said, well, we have something else for you. And he hands me a job description. It's an entry-level position requiring a GED, and you have to punch the clock. Right. And everything just dropped at that moment. And I knew something like that was coming up. So I said, Mikey, Alex, I have to accept it because I need a job. But then I walked down and went to HR, said, here's my laptop. I restored everything to the original state. I'm never coming back. And then I started the disability realm.
Right. Now that's the issue, because that disclosure had an impact and opened up potential, litigation, because in Canada that could be a constructive dismissal type situation. So
we actually filed a lawsuit against them, and I hate to say this, to give credit to the attorney for the company, he said basically, we're going to offer you this much. If you don't like it, sue us. And in 8 years, you may get your money, but most of the money is going to go to pay the attorneys and the expert and the witnesses, and you may end up with nothing. So by all means, accept this or file suit. So we negotiated a slightly higher amount, but I ended up walking away with sort of a distaste in my mouth about the whole process. Right.
Yeah. And I think that's the issue with, being diagnosed, early onset, because the whole, and that's where the opportunity comes to educate, because I think everybody perceives Parkinson's as an old person's disease.
Mm-hmm.
It happens later on, and when you're old, but more and more people, as we know, are being diagnosed in mid-career. So I think this kind of topic is always going to be there, and I think it's a big one, because it impacts the ability to claim disability up in Canada. It requires the request for accommodation, and so it sets up a whole area of potential litigation as well.
And I was under the mistaken thought that since I knew him for that point 15 years, and I was upfront with him that when he said, as long as I have a job, you have a job, I always felt at the end of the day, I shouldn't, because it wasn't, I had a job that paid, then went from a salary position to like $20 an hour.
Right. Yeah, and they probably said to you, "Don't take it personally." It's hard to not take it personally when we're the ones who have got Parkinson's.
Well, the interesting thing is, after I got discovery from them, the type of discovery that was produced was they weren't actually doing anything to help me. It appeared that they were trying to set the table for my dismissal if they needed to, and that's what really pissed me off at the end.
Right.
Yeah, I just knew I couldn't be a nurse at the level I was at, because I was a surgical nurse, coding, and and all of that, And
so I tell people
there was
now
no way.
When I talk to newly diagnosed, I say, if you just choose to tell your employer, document everything, follow up with conversations, follow up with an email, just so replying. I just want to make sure I understand the conversation and keep a paper trail on everything.
Absolutely. And tell them at the right time. As I said, I think it's important. And the first discussion I had was because they probably don't know what Parkinson's is, and probably I didn't know it at the time. But the approach was, look, I'm working for as long as I can. I don't expect there to be a change in my responsibilities, and I'll keep you posted, kind of thing. And it brought a sense of relief because I was negating what I had, and I was, essentially dissociating myself from my team as well. Burying myself in my office. Declining client events. As a lawyer, sitting in a boardroom with your hands shaking doesn't convey the right image as a lawyer in terms of confidence in your clients. So I addressed that, but there's no question that in my mind that there's always a question mark over somebody in a career development who discloses. So, I mean, that's been my experience as well.
I'll be right. I got to take a 2-minute. I'll be right back.
Yeah, sure.
No problem. Well, yeah, but for me, it was the cognitive was coming more forward than the physical, because the physical was, more of a handwriting. It was more of a, a little bit of a slowness or heaviness at times. The physical wasn't bothering me as much as the cognitive. I had short-term memory issues. And word finding is what they call it, or I call it word salad. It's like, the word is stuck between your brain and your mouth. And it's like, and for me, talking and being a nurse and being on your toes and, I mean, you had to be such at a hot, ready to go at the drop of a hat if another, if a code is in another room, and it's like, there was no way. And so now I volunteer and I actually go to a assisted living nearby, and I talk to other Parkinson's patients, people, and I help them, and I give, I've passed out the, Every Victory Counts book, and, and that kind of stuff. And I just sit and talk to them or play cards with them, or, just spend time with it. And that satisfies that, nursing. And also being an ambassador and getting some resources to my community really helps. That
absolutely. I mean, David, we've come out with a Canadian edition. I don't know if you know that. In addition to in the States, I was involved with the redrafting and Canadianizing some of the content.
How do you Canadianize something that's? I mean, I was always surprised by they said they had to change it for the Canada market.
Yes.
What kind of things did you do?
Well, some of the things I was involved personally with the legal side in terms of disclosure and impact and the legislation around that. But some of the listings of medications. The medication is different. We don't have some of your brand names. We probably do the same, but it's in a different name. So that there were some chapters where there was a change, but there's some great quotes and some great photographs, and most of it is uniform. And I think that's a credit to the manual itself, because it's adaptable to anybody with Parkinson's.
Yeah.
Okay, we do have a question. Sure. Or a very interesting topic. I was just recently diagnosed with Parkinson's, and I'm 53. I felt pressured to disclose my information to my employer by then, and seems like quite a big deal, even though they're the largest employer in my area and also a medical facility. I feel like they are not very trustworthy. I'm the person that has health insurance for the family. Yeah, there we go. Can you guys see this?
Yeah,
on the screen.
Yeah, I think this brings up a lot of the topic, and from a Canadian perspective, I can comment that there's some strategies that you can adopt in terms of, if you come to the point that your condition is impacting your performance, and you have health coverage, you may want to go on short-term disability. You may want to file for long-term disability. It doesn't guarantee that you won't be fired or let go as far as your employment is concerned. But if you meet the definition of, disabled or totally disabled under your policy, and you have coverage on the day that you file the claim, irrespective of what happens to the employment, you are still covered. And I'm only talking about from the Canadian perspective. So there are some strategies to secure your position, not your employment, but to secure your potential coverage under your disability policies. But I'm interested in the comment about being pressurized to disclose. I'd like to understand what sort of that means. I think there's some certain jobs when it comes to the safety of other workers or the job safety issue that disclosure is necessary. There could be that as well. But no, I think this is it's a big issue because we diagnosed mid-career, as I said earlier, have the job, all of a sudden your life is completely different, and how you're going to cope, what's going to happen if you are fired, what's going to happen to your financial stability, can you afford to the medication. It has such a big dramatic impact, probably worse than the date of diagnosis. You come out, it took me 15 minutes to get the diagnosis, but those are not the questions that I had. It was more, hey, how am I going to live with this on an ongoing basis?
Well, I'm assuming you live in the U.S., but some of the thoughts that I have is short-term. If your disability, most every company offers short-term disability as a free benefit. They pay for it, which means to you it's taxable income.
Right.
If you buy, and then you go to long-term disability. Again, if the company provides it as a benefit, it's taxable income to you.
Right.
If you're paying for it out of your own pocket, it's tax-free money.
Right.
But something to consider, my policy basically gave me 50% of my base salary.
Right.
So, and another thing to look at is Social Security disability. If you go and do Social Security website and you pull down your benefits, if you look at that dollar amount they will give you, if you met the full retirement value of working, when you're 67 or 70, I don't know, that's basically the amount of money you'll get if you're awarded Social Security disability.
Right.
So in my case, I took 50% of my income. I got awarded short term. I got awarded Social Security. Now the short-term disability offset the total amount by the Social Security, which made sense because they weren't going to let you double dip. But then I had some issues going from short-term to long-term. I had to actually hire a lawyer to fight that because they wanted to deny my long-term disability.
Right. Right.
And I also hired in Maryland at the time. Social Security, if you hire a lawyer for Social Security, they're capped at the amount of money they can get for taking on your case.
Right.
Yeah.
So I had lawyers in
6,000.
both cases, and when I finally got my awards, they were backdated.
Right. Right.
Yep. From one respect, it is a financial decision that you have to make, and it's a difficult one because, like you, I was the primary breadwinner. I had the insurance. My wife was going to become a teacher. She was, transitioning in her life as well.
Yeah.
But the good news is my wife's been retired a year now. I've been retired, I guess, more or less 3 years. And our quality of life hasn't really changed that much. I'm surprised that with such a difference in income, I would expect a much different quality of life, but life is good.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's good to hear.
I've been frugal my whole life. I have one small car payment and a mortgage, and that's it.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think there's an opportunity to live a different life, and if you've got the right planning, and I think planning is important, and I think this is the other gap is that you walk out of that specialist with a diagnosis, but there's no rule book, there's no playlist about how to cope, and what you just said, Tom, is valuable information that should be made available to a patient who within the first 90 days. So you don't deal with it on your day one, you deal with it at some point. But at least you've got the information to go to, because those are the kind of questions that kept me awake and threw me into a dark hole initially on my first couple of years.
I think that's
Jerry. I just posted my phone number. If you want to call me at any time, I'd be glad to talk to you.
Right.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I do have to say about Davis Finney, though. They get into the nitty gritty of how to live with this every day. Right. And they're one of the few, and trusted resources that, that really get into how to live with this every day.
And this is something that Katrina and I are trying to do is we don't want to have a formal type podcast where we talk about the medication and different things. We just want to have a conversation with people such as Gary, who just said, what do I do? You're not going to find that in a webinar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Plus, we don't have to prepare. We can just get on a call and just start talking.
Yeah.
No, and that's what we do. And because it's a daily thing. And I've talked to so many people who are so scared. That's why I started the podcast. It was just me and audio, and during the pandemic, because people couldn't get out and get the resources and everything, and people were so scared with this diagnosis. And I pretty much read from the Every Victory Counts book and said, this is what to expect when you first get diagnosed. And these are the symptoms, because nobody, it's a snowflake disease. Everybody has no two people are going to have the same symptoms. So it's like, this is what you can expect or what you can't expect, and really try to find, like me and Tom say, you need your movement disorder specialist, you need your care partner, you need, if whoever, physical therapy, this is where you need to start. And,
I did the worst
exercise.
Yep. The day I got back from the doctor, I went onto Google and typed in young onset Parkinson's, and I was blown away with what I saw. I was so intimidated, so upset, because I had all these words were thrown at me, all these people, were thrown at me, images, and I had no idea what I was looking at. So I would say that, yes, you've got your prescription medication in your left hand and a copy of the Davis Finney Foundation, everything that counts in your right hand.
Yeah, we say Davis Finney, Michael J. Fox, maybe the Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, and that's about it.
And really, this website.
And our podcast.
Well, it goes without saying.
I generically call it the 4 pillars. The first pillar is in no particular order, but the 4 pillars you need to support yourself. Is you got to find a great, hopefully, moving disorder specialist.
Right.
You got to start exercising. You got to go on a good diet, and you've got to join some type of social organization. Support group. Because you can't go through this alone. I mean, I think in the beginning, we all went, the first couple of years, we went through this by ourselves.
Yes.
And for me, it wasn't until I started getting help from the outside and going to support meetings that I actually started getting comfortable with the fact that I had Parkinson's.
Yes, exactly right. Same with me. I
remember the first time I went into the pedaling for Parkinson's class. I'm like, oh my God, look at all these old people. Because I'm in my late 50s, and but it was to watch what they were doing in that room and the way they were attacking the Parkinson's. It was inspirational to a certain extent.
Yes. Absolutely. And I think that's what Parkinson's tries to take away from us being the heroes in our own lives.
Right. You have to advocate. If you can't advocate for yourself, you can't expect anyone to advocate for you.
Exactly.
Oh, that's for sure. Because
for a small fee, I'll advocate for you.
Well, that's what PD Self is about too. I mean, Davis Finney is starting that in January.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing that as well.
Yeah. No, this is great. I think these podcasts are a tremendous opportunity to get the word out, share, learn, listen, and contribute. We all go through it different ways, but I do find it a tremendous supportive community.
Yeah, and one of the things too that I was missing is that sense of purpose when I left. I like that when I first got married, I'm Sandy's husband, then I'm Justin's father, then I'm Anna's father. Now I'm the guy at work, and then suddenly all that. Well, I still was Anna's father, Justin, but all the other things that, unfortunately, in the male world, which defines who you are, it all went away. I didn't have I couldn't define myself by what I did anymore, and that was hard.
Yes, absolutely, and that adds to the depression, and the other burdens that Parkinson produces and introduces. But I just, if I can encourage somebody to just do something different that improves their lives 1%, then you can add to that. And I think that's I found my purpose with Parkinson's. I really have. Mm-hmm. As I said, I like the person I've become because I'm more patient. And I say to people that are well, don't wait for a diagnosis. Live your life like you've got the diagnosis. Mm-hmm. It brought me focus. and that's how we should all live.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the greatest thing you could tell somebody is find a sense of purpose in your life. Because like I was telling that when I got started with the Davis Finney Foundation, it gave me purpose in life again.
Right.
I could at least, it gave me something to do that was making something better for somebody. Because for me, there was 2 or 3 people who did something for me that made me the person I am now. And without them, I don't think I would be here right now.
Yep. And that's the other thing. This disease condition, it impacts not only us, but obviously our caregivers as well. And if we can live well, then the burden is lessened to a certain extent with the family, and I think that's important as well.
Yeah, my husband says caregiver fatigue is real.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if I'm having a good day, it's it's still sometimes you have that attitude or that little moment, and where you get frustrated and
yes, but then you can turn to us. And that takes away the burden from your caregiver. Give them a little break. Let us carry that burden with you and for you, and it lessens it for them. Yeah,
and
definitely.
With that in mind too, is if you have I have a great movement disorder specialist. I'm just so lucky that I have this gentleman, and in his practice, they also had a psychiatrist that worked with Parkinson. So going to see both of them, like one day their rooms are butted next to each other, just a common wall. And I'm in with the psychiatrist. Said, "Do you mind if I pound on his wall just to aggravate him?" He said, "Please don't do that." But for me, the biggest change I saw emotionally was I became more emotional. I was never really a hugger or a crier or anything, but I would find that I would just even thinking about it, I started to cry.
Right.
One of the conversations I had with my neurologist was, he goes, "Well, what do you want to change, if anything?" I said, "I don't want to cry anymore."
Right.
I know everyone says it's okay, but Clint Eastwood, John Wayne, they don't cry. So she gave me this prescription for a drug called Lamonagine, I believe. It was
Lexapro.
I was on Lexapro in addition to this. It was called a mood enhancer. Right. And when I Googled it.
Oh, Lamotrigine. Yeah. Lamictal.
Thank you. And when I Googled it, it basically said they give this to people with schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. And I'm like, I don't have either one of those.
Right.
So I sent her a message, and I basically said, I don't want to take this. I mean, look at and she replies back saying, well, I give it such a small dosage, I feel comfortable giving it to pregnant women. And this is where I think my doctors love me or hate me. My response back to her was, that's great, thank you. And should I become pregnant, I know I can continue to take this medication.
And I'll continue crying throughout it.
Yeah. And she just replied back saying, why am I not surprised? Which, those are the type of relationships you build with your doctor. They have to be more than just a doctor. You have to find a way to connect with them, because this is, after you're diagnosed, it's really only a question of what kind of meds am I going to give you?
Yes, that great point. And that's
if you're only going in there in a clinical perspective, then your medication is going to be described in a clinical way.
Right.
If you sit in front of your doctor and say, I just don't want to cry anymore.
Yeah.
It opens up a whole new world.
Yeah, I think that's the access. I think the access to medication and care is the same in Canada. But the other thing is the relationship that you have with your specialist. My doctor, the first one, and I'm on to my second, said, "Well, here's the prescription. Take it or don't take it. Don't really care. See you in 6 months." And
we had the same doctor.
Can
I think.
You tell your dad to get
the
well outside, please.
Sorry.
His phone is in here charging.
But then I found somebody different.
I'm trying to record the
second one
podcast.
who looked at me more holistically.
Thank you.
Right.
And I think that's important as well. And the other point I want to make is putting ourselves in the center of our own care. I used to see my movement disorder specialist pre-COVID twice a year. Now I do as well, but telemedicine during COVID, I thought was pretty good because it brought the doctor into my home. And, I always used to go to the doctor when I was on my meds, when I was walking well, that I felt great, and you're always on your best behavior. But the truth is they've got to see us when we're not so great, because and that allows them to do that with telemedicine. And also I've started reading and researching about adaptive wearables that monitor things. And I think that's the future of care as well for us with this chronic disease.
Google the company is CHARCO, Charco.
Yes.
CHA. They have
Yes.
they're coming. It's in right now. They're in Europe, but they're coming to top U.S. soon with a little wearable that's like maybe not quite this big, but it's like about the size of a quarter, and
Right.
you just literally glue it to your chest.
Right.
It's really a great thing. But talking about letting your doctor see you at your worst, this is only happened to me. So my doctor's 2.5 hours away from me, but he's my doctor. It's not that bad of a drive. So I drive out one day for a 10:30 appointment. I park at 10:15. I go in the building across the street, and they say he's running like an hour late. Are you okay? I say, yeah, I'm fine. So about a half hour, I say, I'm going to put more money in the meter. I go out, and my car's not there. It's gone. And I'm 125 miles away from my house. And I call 911. There was like no broken glass. I couldn't figure out. They had no reports of anything. So they said, stay tuned. As soon as we know something. Well, I go back up into the office, and he's walking out to see me now. He goes, are you okay? I said, no, my car's gone. I have no idea what's wrong with it. He goes, well, do you want to reschedule? I'm like, Doc, my car's gone. I'm 125 miles from my house. What am I going to do, walk? No, I don't want to reschedule. If you want to see me at my worst, this is my worst. No car, no idea where it is. I have to go somehow figure out how to get back to where I live. 100. So no, I don't want to go. Let's talk. And he said, well, you're my last patient. Why don't you just come in? And we spent he allowed me to sit there and call my, when they finally called, I had it turns out for some reason there was a small engine fire and the car was towed to a yard.
Oh, wow.
At least I knew, and then I was able to arrange for a loaner to get home. But I spent over an hour just in this talking to him and working on the car thing. And my doctor's more like my friend. I like to say he's my very smart friend.
Yes. Right. Well, he should have offered to drive you home.
Yeah, well, I don't think we're that close.
That's what a Canadian would do. I'm just saying, that's what a Canadian doctor would do. We'd carry you on our back.
So one day I said, you're my doctor, you got to carry me, because I said, you need to go work out more, because he's really thin. He goes, what do you mean? He says, your shoulders. I'm 210 pounds at the time.
Right.
And you're not going to be able to carry me.
Right.
Let's go to the gym together, because you got to carry me for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's funny. That's like my doctor. He is so awesome. He always wants me to call him by his first name, and I just can't do it.
Yeah.
It's like there's too much nursing in here.
Yes, that's right.
I just can't do it. I say Dr. D.
Right.
I go that far because I can't ever remember his full name, his full last name. It's too hard to pronounce.
What about sleep? How many hours do you sleep, and what do you do when you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning?
I pee at 3 a.m.
I mean, well,
he's a good sleeper. I'm the insomniac.
okay. So Tom, you can go back to bed and fall back to sleep.
Well, not necessarily. But for me, I always have a brain that's working. It's hard. So I started listening to what I call mystery theater. It's just one of those old from the 30s and the 40s and 50s, things like The Whistler and Johnny Dollar. Those. And so when I go to bed, I'll put on a mystery theater, and I will fall asleep within 30 seconds. Because the way I think about it is I'm telling my brain to have permission to stop thinking and just listen to the Dragnet episode or something. And then when I do that, I just pass out. And I do wake up every morning around 3-ish.
Right.
I go to the bathroom, and then I don't really get good sleep from 3. And usually I'm up by almost 5:30, 5:45 in the morning.
Yep.
And I just can't lay in bed anymore.
Yes.
I'm up at 6 every morning, but yeah, I'm an insomniac. I do have REM, sleep behavior disorder.
Right.
It's more prevalent in young onset, I guess.
Right.
Where I have the vivid dreams or the acting out in my sleep, and I take 1 clonazepam and 12 milligrams of melatonin. So most of the time I do sleep, but if I wake up, I do have a hard time getting back to sleep. So I will listen. I do have a sleep meditation app called Abide, which is light music and Bible verses or Bible stories for me. Right. It's a faith-based, and so that does help me a lot, but it depends. Sometimes there have been nights where I don't sleep at all, but I'll nap a couple times the next day and then sleep the night.
You bring up another topic that I'd like your feedback on. I know I'm the guest here, but I'm asking you the questions.
There's no rules.
That's what it's for.
What about religion? People have said to me, did you turn to religion? Did you question your religion? What are your comments on that, Tom and Katrina?
Oh, I'll let Katrina go first.
No, I rededicated my life in 2001, so it was I already had my faith, and I didn't question my faith. I did kind of wonder why. I did have to go through the stages of grief for nursing, and I wondered what my purpose was now. I'm like, what am I supposed? Because there was a lot of my my faith was lived out in my calling as a nurse, because it's kind of like, witness at all times, if necessary, use words. So for me, it was more by caring for people. That's how I lived out my faith. It wasn't, I wasn't meant to be a preacher. I wasn't meant to be, that kind of thing. It was just caring for others, that how I lived out my faith. So it was like, what am I supposed to do now? And so I know through the podcast and through others, through Davis Finney and, but I didn't, and I know some people have said, through, I don't know if it's kind of a, misinterpretation of faith, is like, you can instantly be healed or whatever. I've had people pray over me like that, and I'm like, no, I know God gave me this for a reason. It's like I've always had that peace inside of me, that I knew this, God can, I have the faith to know that God can heal me, but I've had the acceptance to know that this is meant for a reason. And so I just have to, be educated enough, to know what, my purpose is, to educate and mentor and get other people through this. So if that's making any sense, but no, I never questioned God or got mad at him. I more get mad at myself, because I feel it's more of a, because I'm like, I'm frustrated with myself, because sometimes, I'd rather give up sometimes than do what I know God's called me to do. And Tom knows and understands that sometimes I want to give up, and but God doesn't let me. So.
Well, there are times I think I was called Thomas for a reason, because I know it's a question
doubting
of faith.
Thomas.
And there is a part of me that I am a sort of a doubting Thomas, and I do try to reconcile the fact that, how can things like my Parkinson started the day my younger brother passed away from cancer.
Wow, right.
And I just find trouble justifying that with this concept of an all-loving, particle God. And so, but interesting, I think he has a sense of humor, because the day I was officially diagnosed, that night I'm just laying in bed watching TV Land, which is, I don't know if you have TV Land up there, but it's old American sitcoms, basically. Yep. And I'm watching an Archie Bunker episode, but I'm watching one more Archie. And I don't care how bad you are. You watch Archie Bunker and you got to laugh. But then I said, I'm going to watch one more show. And I swear to you, the next show, the theme song, the Michael J. Fox and Family Ties came on.
Wow.
And I just looked at the ceiling and said, this ain't effing funny. And then...
He does have a sense of humor, trust me.
Yeah, it is a question of faith. And there's, I guess, on balance, I believe more than I don't believe, because, I guess in one respect, I want to believe, because I want to know there's a reason for what's happening to us. I think sometimes it's hard for us just to say you're born, you live, and you die, and that's all you have.
Right.
So to that extent, I want to, but I'm also more of a tangible guy. I need to touch, feel, and like, that's why I think Thomas is a good name for me, because I want to touch the hand.
Yes, right. Yeah, I think that.
But having said all that, I do think it's extremely important that you live a good moral life. And I don't do things in my life saying, oh, there's no afterlife for me, or there's no heaven or hell, so I'm just going to do this. I still do I call it the Boy Scout. If I say Boy Scouts honor, God, that's that part of the expression, that's God's honest truth.
Yeah, right. Yeah, great.
How about yourself?
Well, I'm sort of in between. I'm not very religious, but I do believe that there's some, presence and some omnipresent. And I think I was given Parkinson's for a reason. I'm still finding that. I mean, I think I found it. I know why, but I turned 60, so I'm sort of on that sort of track about what happens afterwards and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I have decided on a whim to go to a medium, a reader, whatever it is, because I lost my father when I was very young. He was 45, I was 6.
Wow.
So I don't know anything about him. And I was very close to my mother, who passed away in her 60s. So my brother said to me, who's 10 years older, and he's always my older brother, he said, well, what are you doing that for? That's ridiculous. I said, look, if there is something out there, I want to know that I will recognize my father who I've never met, and just to make sure that I recognize him. So we chuckled at that. So I don't know if I think it's just a maturing thing. I don't think it's a religious thing. I just think it's just part of our life and the way we kind of age and what's coming, that kind of thing.
Yeah, my mother just turned 90, and she's a very intelligent Christian. And I tell her, Mom, you're never going to die. And she's like, why? I said, because when you get to the pearly gates, they're not ready for the conversation they're about to have. You've already got a list of questions you want to ask St. Peter, and he's just not. They've only been in existence since infinity. They need more time. So for that, and she just sort of laughs at me because I'm a lot like my mother.
Yeah, well, I know that now.
No, we went to.
Well, and I can honestly say, as a person of faith, to me, it's not about religion at all whatsoever. At all. I've learned a long time ago. It's about just a relationship. That's all it is with me. I hate religious people. I can't stand them because those can be the most hurtful people that you ever met. And so I have found, I think, just the people with the real relationship are the people that, are the best. Right. And my mother is the toughest mountain woman you'll ever meet, because they told us about 8 or 9 years ago that she has end stage COPD and that we'd be lucky to have her for a year. But that was 8 or 9 years ago. And so I always say, Mom, you'll be with us for a long time because only the good die young. And she'll tell me, yep, that'll be both of us. We'll be here for a long time, won't we, Trina? So, and that's my mom. She'll tell you she's 16 at heart, and that's the way she'll always be. And it's the attitude. And it's really, that's what keeps her going. And that's where we're going to her house tomorrow to spend Christmas with my parents. They both have.
Tangent. You ready? I got a tangent.
Here we go.
Yeah.
So my mom, I guess she just turned 90, and she's doing a lot of estate planning. I mean, she's very logical, very logistically driven, and she has some money that she's put aside for her burial. And she goes, "Well, I was wondering if I should invest this money, because right now it's just sitting there getting nothing." I'm like, "Mom, you're 89 years old. You're a short-term investor." She goes, she starts laughing. I said, "Mom, I can't say it. You're a short-term investor. Let's just leave it at that." You have to ask yourself, is it worth 5% of whatever amount of money you have over the next couple of years? Because, Mom, again, short-term investor. Just stick it in the bank, put someone as a beneficiary on it or and just be done with it. And don't worry about it. Because, Mom, when you pass away, you don't have to worry if there's enough money. That's what we're here for.
That's right.
Yeah, and I make fun because my dad just started on 24-hour oxygen. He has congestive heart failure now. I think my dad's 77, my mom's 74 now. And I say it's now dueling tubings, because it's like they twist up their tubings together. And I just say, just dance. Dance together. And they've been married 55 years, 1 year older than me. So, and they argue like they've been married 55 years. Yeah. So it'll be fun at Christmas as always.
Yes.
Because everybody's.
I think I know we're coming up to the top of the hour, but I think the other element is this having a sense of humor. I think it's.
Oh, yes.
Yes,
that's why they put me with Tom.
Yeah. And
here's my sense of humor.
Are you sure it's okay to wash this shirt? You've only worn it for a couple of days.
I always keep my wife close to me.
Yeah.
Because I asked Everett, I said I wanted a partner to relaunch the podcast, and he put me with Tom. So yes, everyone, you need a sense of humor.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's such a serious subject that we got to take light when we can.
Oh.
And
I'm very blessed.
Top 10 list of the perks of Parkinson's that change every day, but it's my top 10. And I think it's important to do that as well.
Yeah, I like to think humor. I call myself a lightning rod for stupidity. If I can poke fun at myself or poke fun at something in a situation, and that means if you're laughing and I'm laughing for that short period of time, you don't have Parkinson.
Exactly.
A couple of years ago, I was talking to the staffers for our congressman and federal or our senator, and I wanted to give a little joke before the thing started. And so I ran it by the guys at Michael J. Fox, and they said, "It's funny, but no." And it goes like this. And one of those nasty Republicans who voted no for the National Act to end Parkinson's is going to a support group meeting with one of his advisors. And he's really not sure what to expect because it's a large group, but they're his constituents. And even though he's not in favor of it, he wants to talk to his constituents. So when he gets there, he opens the door and he looks inside and then looks at his staff and says, I think it's okay. They're all waving to us.
I have one for you. How do you know you're in Canada?
How?
Someone in a Home Depot offers you assistance and they don't even work there.
I love that. Yeah, that's what I said. I've taken Tom back to his place by the doctor. We kind of earned this reputation of being, pleasant.
So, by the way, is Nova Scotia part of Canada, or is that separate on its own?
No, that's on the East Coast, part of Canada. And talking about that, I spoke about a 100-kilometer ride. Next year, what is happening is that I could be in a team that one team is riding from west to east, and I'm supposed to be west, meeting in Ottawa to raise awareness throughout the country about Parkinson's, and then
that's cool.
About stopping in
awesome.
Ottawa.
What kind of bike do you ride?
I don't know. It's got 2 wheels and pedals. No, I must say it's a nice bike. I went through a midlife crisis, so I didn't get a car. I got a bike, and it allows me to ride fast and strong. I think
probably one of those fancy Davis Finney ones.
I'd like to get my hands onto the bikes that he used to ride on.
Yeah, I bought a Cannondale, and I like it. That's my road bike.
Right. Yeah.
I don't. I wish I could get one, but between the dirt road and the bridge over the creek and then the railroad tracks, and I don't have any place. And then I have coal trucks that go down the road, and you hear their air brakes. If you heard that earlier. Was your
bicycling path fairly up and down, hilly, or flat, or?
In Canada, it depends. Yeah. At the moment, I'm indoors with my Swift, which is a animated ride, so that's great. But literally, I'm in the suburbs north of Toronto, about 5 kilometers north. Heading north is all hilly, so it's a great summer. It's great. Winter, not so much.
So, if you had to ask how many miles an hour you ride, what's the pace?
My miles an hour, in kilometers, it's about 30 kilometers an hour.
Okay, so you're riding 50 kilometers an hour.
I'm probably riding somewhere around there. Yeah.
Okay, because I'm always wondering when I'm riding my bike, I'm trying to get more definitive answers what my average speed should be, so I know if I can.
Well, you got to do a threshold calibration.
Yeah, that's my next thing I want to do.
Until you fail, and that gives you an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Gary said he's been trying to find a good way to deal with his Parkinson's. He's been telling a lot of bad dad jokes, which I have one from my daughter. Yes. She told me, okay, now I have to say this right. How can you track Will Smith in the snow?
Ooh, okay. I don't know how.
Fresh Prince.
I like it.
Well, there's a guy
She's
on
16.
YouTube. There's a couple on YouTube. They do dad jokes. I don't know the name of them, but they did one that I thought was particularly funny because I'm a little bit of a math geek. It's like, if 666 is evil, what is the root of all evil?
What?
25.4. The square root of 666. That's definitely a dad joke.
Yeah. Okay. I don't have a dad joke, but one of my top 10 is benefits of having Parkinson's. Never having to buy an electric toothbrush again.
Yeah.
It's like a dad joke.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
And all my glasses of milk turn into milkshakes.
There you go.
Well, listen, I think this has been great. It's been
wonderful. I really appreciate it.
Definitely.
Larry.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I love talking to you. You were very, 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 very good.
No, thanks. I think it's all part of being comfortable with yourself and the topic and having open and welcoming people like you. So great to see you again, and let's keep in touch.
Sounds great.
Larry, I'll touch base with you after the holidays.
Yes, happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
You're welcome,
everybody.
Gary. Take care,
Remember,
Gary.
what's the final word? Make sure you like us and thumbs up, all that good stuff.
Thumbs up, all that stuff.
Thank you,
and
everyone.
check out the Facebook page. Take care. We'll see you next week.
All the best.
Park
Bye-bye.
right here.
Take care.
Bye.
Cheers for now.
Take care. How did that
was
go?
good. Are we still live? Oh God.